Good evening. I'm sorry about the late start. This is Kat Hobson, host of Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am on my way home from a wonderful event. It was the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, and I am rolling down the road, not right this minute, but about to be again. I have pulled over to get this show begun. This is going to be a replay of my final interview with Stan Friedman, and frankly is the second hour, who is my research partner and the brilliant paranormal investigator. You're going to love it. I loved it, and I miss Stanton, and I enjoy Frank, so it's a good hodgepodge. So stay tuned with me Wednesday night when I am Paranormal Experienced, sharing the details about the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash and just having a wonderful time. I will talk to y'all later, and I hope you enjoy this. I enjoyed doing it. So, here we go.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
Reaching all the way back to 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition. Here is your host of Fate Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening and welcome to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and I am joined by someone I admire so much. He's a really good author. He is a nuclear physicist. He's done all kinds of propulsion systems. If you ever get a chance to hear him talk about them, get there. He taught me an awful lot just in one lecture. I can't imagine if I'd had a chance to listen to him all these years. And he actually is someone that is really kind and really interesting. He is going to be joining me tonight for the first hour because he is planned for tomorrow and needs to be getting off a little sooner than he thought. So I'm going to be joined for the second hour by Frank Lee, who everyone knows is one of my favorite parapsychological researchers. So Stanton has written so many books. He was the leading Roswell crash investigator, although it took him, I guess you came across information, Stan, about 30 years later, 31 years after the fact, that made you go, and get involved in that research. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, Roswell happened in 1947. I didn't hear about it until the 1970s. And it was one of those things where a reporter said, the guy you ought to talk to is Jesse Marcel. And brilliant investigator that I am, I said, who's he? Oh, he handled wreckage of one of those saucers you're interested in when he was in the military. Oh, where'd that come from? Kind of thing. What do you know about him? Well, he lives in Houma. I didn't even know where Houma, Louisiana was, but I've been there since. And I called him and talked to him a number of times, and I've written a couple of books that he was involved in. But I've been working on UFOs, or in that, talking about them. Gave my first lecture in, 67, something like that. And I've been interested since 1958 when I read a book by the man who had headed Project Blue Book for the Air Force, and back a number of years. And I have found that we've made a lot of progress. There are a number of things that have changed since I first read that first book, and I've given over 600 lectures in all 50 states, 10 provinces of Canada, and 19 other countries. So be a ufologist, see the world.
Be a good
like
ufologist and see the world.
Well, we try. And it's been interesting. I mean, I've been to Australia and Argentina and Israel and, a bunch of other, Saudi Arabia, places like that. So it's been interesting, but more important, our understanding of a number of relevant topics has changed drastically. And people may not realize it, but, when Frank Drake talked about listening for signals from, there might be as many as radio signals, that is, there might be as many as 8,000 places that could be sending signals to us. Well, in that time, we've done an awful lot of things that give us new information about planets. And rather than being 8,000 planets in the galaxy, now we know that there's over 100 billion just in the Milky Way, which is quite a remarkable thought when you stop to think about it. And something else that's changed, our understanding, look, I worked on nuclear fusion for deep space travel back in the 60s. And, everybody, the argument from the nasty, noisy negativists was you can't get here from there. It would take too long and too much energy. Mm-hmm. So what are you talking about alien visitors for, Friedman? Well, nuclear fusion is what powers all the stars. And there are a heck of a lot of stars out there. And
they have to have that to get the heat to become... Well, if they want to become planets later, they have to have that action too, right?
Well, they have to find some way to produce an awful lot of energy with something which isn't too big or too heavy. Mm-hmm. And nuclear fusion will do that. And many people don't seem to understand we have some very impressive nuclear fission devices. There are nuclear-powered aircraft and carriers that can operate for 18 years without refueling. Years.
Astounding.
That's a lot better than burning oil or coal.
I would say so. But Fukushima still has me a little freaked out. But you're right, it is a cleaner energy.
Hey, look, how many people die in automobile accidents every year in the United States? So is it 30,000, something like that?
At least.
Nobody said, well, you ought to ban automobiles. Look at all those people that got killed. Sorry about that, but, life is risky. Life is dangerous. Yeah, life goes on. And so, but the fact that we're at a point, we didn't know about either fission or fusion until 1938. So it's nice to think we're the most advanced guys around, but no, we're not.
Well, people see these. These are real incidents.
All over, and that's one of the interesting things, that they're seen all over the world. As I said, I've spoken in 19 countries, 50 states, 10 provinces, and at the end of my lectures, I usually ask, how many people here believe they've seen what I would consider to be a flying saucer? Just raise your hand. I'm not asking for names or anything. And typically it's 10% of the audience. I would point and count, just so they know I'm not making up the number.
I've seen you do it.
And then I ask, how many of you reported what you saw? Oops, 90% of the hands go down. And when they come to my table for me to sign a book or that sort of thing, they want to tell me about their sighting. And did you report it? No. Why not? They'd think I was some kind of a nut, is the most common answer that I got. So those things are changing, and I'm not saying people still think that way. I'm just saying that within my lifetime, certainly there have been massive changes in attitude. And, I mentioned nuclear fusion. That's what powers the stars, but I worked on nuclear fission systems back in the 70s, and that's atom bombs, if you want to think in a negative sort of way, but or those nuclear-powered carriers. But Los Alamos tested a fission rocket, the Phoebus 2B, and would you believe, less than 8 feet in diameter, power level was 4,000 megawatts, and the power of Hoover Dam, it only produces 2,000 megawatts. So that's pretty impressive for something less than 8 feet in diameter.
I would say, yes.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, way back in 1650, the world was created in 4004 B.C., said Bishop Usher. I don't know whether he said it was a Thursday or Friday, but it doesn't matter. And now we're saying 4 billion for the Earth and 13 billion for the universe. And those are astonishing numbers. And, people say there's a lack of imagination. Why would anybody come here? Well, maybe to quarantine us, I say. Who would want us out there? I mean, it's easy to forget, and maybe the young people never knew it, that in World War II, we nice guy Earthlings killed 50 million people. We destroyed 1,700 cities. We're not nice guys.
We're not.
Anybody would come here to make sure we don't go out and bother them. Also, here's a factoid, if you will, that surprises some people for some reason. It turns out the Earth, of the 9 planets in the solar system, this is the densest one. That is a cubic meter of Earth, the planet Earth, weighs more than a cubic meter of any of the other planets. And you say, so what? Well, it means that there are more heavy metals here, amongst which are some very exciting ones like uranium, rhenium, osmium. So somebody may have been stealing the goodies from here for a long time. We don't know. But what I'm saying is our perspective now is certainly very different from what it was when I gave my first lecture. And I think people need to recognize that, nuclear energy isn't just for atom bombs or H-bombs. There are a couple of hundred nuclear power plants around. And as I say, fission and fusion will get us to the stars. I'm not saying there isn't something else, because I don't think I know everything there is to be known. Each generation thinks it knows it all, and then finds out, whoops, we didn't know about that, did we?
Well, kind of like with the nuclear testing, when they had all of the people in the desert that were like ducking into trenches and stuff because they felt like they would be safe if they weren't in the way of the blast. I saw the videos of them sweeping each other off to sweep the radiation off. And, so they didn't really have a clue at that time either. I mean, things happen. You learn as you go. And when you are implementing something so powerful, but it's something you can't see, you don't really perceive those dangers. And when you were talking about the fission-powered aircraft carriers and stuff, and there was an electromagnetic submarine also built in the 60s.
Oh, yes.
And you actually said it's possible to envision an airborne analog of that submarine.
Yes.
So there would be an unusual flying object.
Well, very unusual. I call it a magneto-aerodynamic propulsion system. You ionize the air, you make it electrically conducting. It glows when a rocket comes in, for example. The nose cone glows and all that sort of thing. And you interact with electric and magnetic fields, and you can control all the important aspects of flight. You can change your direction, you can change your speed, you can control lift, drag, heating, all those nice things. It's not something we do routinely. I don't fire up nuclear rockets in my backyard.
Oh, come on. You know you have a hobby.
Well, I live in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and we do have a nuclear power plant in New Brunswick, less than 100 miles from here. And it's been producing power for a couple of decades anyway. And, if I had told my great-grandparents that, they would have laughed their heads off, wouldn't they?
Well, yes.
Because Friedman's mantra, progress comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. The future is not an extrapolation of the past. A laser isn't just a better light bulb. It's entirely new physics to produce the light, but it sure does it a heck of a lot more effectively than the old ways. And so I've been excited that I'm living at a time in man's history when things change, where there are new technology, and like that electromagnetic submarine, which was built, incidentally, and operated. Stuart Way, Westinghouse scientist, was the primary inventor. That I don't think we've ended finding the new. It may seem every generation thinks it knows all there is to know. We've made it, man. But when you boil it down, there will be the new, the different, the exciting, and something to make our eyes sparkle about what's going on. Well, look at that.
Right?
And so
it's exciting to see something new come along.
Yes, very much.
Without that, everything would just kind of be staid and boring. Yeah,
and we don't want it to be. Life should be exciting and interesting, and and if you look around, there are quite a few things that didn't exist when I was growing up. I'll tell you that, and I find that exciting. Something, what's going to turn up tomorrow, and it's a big, comparatively speaking, it's a large planet, a lot of different groups of people on it. It's how many? 7 or 8 billion? I don't know. I haven't counted them recently. But and it's exciting to see new things come along and to see people taking advantage of those new things.
Well, it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
But you have to get out there and give it a shot, right? Some of the technology blows me out of the water, but I still am in there pitching. Well, that was a mixed metaphor, but
yeah, it's an exciting time, and I say this because every generation after the one that precedes it says, "Oh, we've got it made. We've made all the great discoveries." Every generation finds out there's more room for the new, the different, the exciting, and. People say, why would they come here? And one of the things I say, they're graduate students doing their thesis work on the development of a primitive society whose major activity is tribal warfare. It's exciting time. And one of the things that's intrigued me, I mentioned I've lectured in 19 countries in all 50 states and 10 provinces. But what I find is that wherever I go, there have been sightings, and there are people who are interested. Australia or Argentina, as I said, or Israel, or I haven't been to India, and I haven't been to Japan. But it may happen yet, although I am getting a little old for going around too much. But the idea is for us to be thinking about the new, the different, the better, and also to try to see how we look to others coming here. And, maybe it's time we grew up a little bit. The military budget on the planet last year was $1 trillion.
Yes.
And there were thousands of people who starved to death. That's crazy, isn't it?
It is totally insane.
Don't we have better things to do than figure out how to kill people faster and more
effectively, yes.
more
I mean,
quickly.
because, I'm sorry, dead is dead.
It's
You don't
strange.
really need
Earthlings
to.
are peculiar. On the other hand, I'm hoping that with satellites and with people flying all over the place and looking at what's going on, that we will realize that we're not all there is. As clever as we have been, we got a long way to go before we get to the end of the road when it comes to new technology, new techniques for doing good things, not just killing. So
Well,
I'm an optimist.
Yes. Well, you are, because when I heard you lecture, thank you for teaching me the difference between fission and fusion. I appreciated that. But also, something that really hit a nerve with me, speaking of the trillions that we're spending, the big boy toys to go out there and blow things up. But you said, can we get to the stars? Well, yeah, throw money at it. All you have to do is put money on it. And that's how y'all achieved your goals. That's how we got a man on the moon. That's how we have accomplished all of the seemingly miraculous aerospace engineering that the U.S. has created over the years. And
it's exciting to think about, isn't it?
it is. And, I was talking to, Giorgio Sigalos and some other people at a different con, and he's signed up to do the mission to Mars. And they were like, well, that's a one-way trip. And he said, I only need a one-way ticket. I mean, they'll figure something out once I'm there.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was such an adventurous thing to do. I would love to be of an age that they would consider me for that.
Well, me too, but I know I'm too old, so I'm not going to worry about it.
But
I've had my day.
But the people that get to go, you're just like, you just go, young man. You just be excited about that and go do it.
Remember, we've had women astronauts too.
Well, he is not going alone, I wouldn't think. He does have a partner. So, a bride, as it were. But it's just something to think about. There are women astronauts, and they are jam up. The Blue Angels have had women, and they're my heroes. So, I love the Blue Angels. But, there's just so many things to anticipate, and including this break that we have to take. We will be back in just a few minutes, y'all. Make sure you come back. This is going to just get better and better.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy. I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, and I am still excited to have Stanton Friedman joining me tonight. I am not going to talk any more than that because I would like to continue our conversation. It's very fun for me to listen to you.
Oh, well, good.
But I do want to ask you, we were talking about throwing money at projects to get them accomplished. When I tell people that, they look at me and turn their head like a puppy who's confused. But putting the money out gets the best talent and the best brains involved, right? And that's where you get the results.
Yeah. I should add, when I was working on nuclear airplanes, we were spending $100 million a year. This is back 40, 50 years ago.
Which was even bigger money.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was a lot of money back then. And people don't realize how much it takes to get the big jobs done. I mean, that's jobs for people, of course, and all that good stuff. But it's exciting to see progress coming from doing things differently. And, you know, I grew up in New Jersey, the most densely populated of all the states. And I'm still excited about getting around from place to place and not taking a bus. In other words, flying. Everybody took a bus. We didn't even have a car until I was a senior in high school. But buses would do the job fine. You know, times have changed, and that's exciting. But they're still going to be changing, and that's the point I think it's important to realize. The future builds on the past, and anybody who thinks we know all there is to know is wrong. There is more to be learned about the world around us. And I find that exciting. I mean, if I had told you that we would go to the moon back when I graduated in high school in 1951, people would have laughed their heads off. You talking about going to the moon, space travel? You're nuts. That's science fiction. Well, it happened, and we went to the moon, and it's been so exciting to me to see these changes, to see how differently things are going. And I've been so glad to see that women have been in the space program, and there are women astronauts. And, you know, there are old prejudices that die with difficulty, but and it's a good exercise. I just got a list a few months ago of all the PhD theses that have been done about UFOs, PhD and master theses. And there's a bunch of them. And people look at me, what? You're saying people get a piled higher and deeper degree by doing something about UFOs? Yes, they did.
That would be an interesting thing to hear the defense of, right?
Well, yeah.
When they're defending their thesis.
progress comes from doing things differently. And one of the ways we do things differently is be willing to fail a few times before you win.
Absolutely.
There aren't many things. When I was working on nuclear rockets, there were some things that didn't work out very well. I was working on nuclear airplanes. People look at me, nuclear airplanes? What, are you kidding? No. We had over 3,000 people working at General Electric Aircraft Nuclear Propulsion Department just outside Cincinnati. It was a big program, and it was fun. I was in radiation shielding, how to protect people from radiation. And we did experiments in many different facilities. It was exciting. And science is more than reading some dusty old book. It's getting your hands dirty, so to speak, getting out there and digging in. And it's fun for any young people listening. My goodness. There's more new stuff to come. And I want to keep saying that simply because a lot of people think, oh, we've learned so much. Look, there's nothing new to learn about or to build, and that simply isn't true.
I would like to ask you a question about that.
Sure. Go ahead.
And it's a little off kilter for a science guy, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You're a science guy who likes ufology. All of the advances that sprang to the fore after the World Wars, during and after, things changed so fast. We have microchips, we have gadgets that you swallow that can fix ulcers, and then you swallow something else to deactivate them and they flush through, right?
Oh, that's neat.
Grant Cameron was talking about downloads. Did we get this technology elsewhere, or is it just human ingenuity that did all this stuff? What is your opinion on that?
I think we have learned by new things by observing others. When we see something strange, we say, gee, how did they do that? Mm-hmm. Maybe we can try this, that, or the other thing. As I said, progress comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. And you have to be ready to fail once in a while. Not everything new works. I'm not saying just because it's new, it's better, or anything like that. But I'm saying if you don't look, you don't find. And if imagination, it may sound strange coming from a physicist, but imagination is a very important part of the development of the new, the different, the okay. Yeah, I know, we're still driving cars around and we're still flying airplanes, but, I was, believe it or not, I was using a slide rule on my first job, a device
I do believe it.
And people look at me, what's a slide rule?
Do they really?
Oh, yeah, it's a gadget, and who uses one anymore, But a little pocket calculator will do everything a slide rule can do, and then a great deal more.
True.
And so I get excited about the new and the different and the exciting. And it's not just nuclear. I mean, yeah, I'm a nuclear physicist, and yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart, some people would say in my head, for things nuclear. But like I say, when you stop to think about a huge aircraft carrier more than 1,000 feet long that can operate for 18 years, and somebody said it's more than that now, Stan, and I said I don't doubt it, but that can operate for 18 years without refueling. That's remarkable. It's exciting. It's different.
It's
let's
so
get
cool.
with it. Yeah, cool. That's the right word for it. And people think we're always going to be doing the same things the same old way. We're not. I will absolutely guarantee you that.
Well, it's so frustrating because you sit there and you look at things and you think there has to be more to doing this. And the government, and I do understand the need sometimes for secrecy, but I think that sometimes if the government would just say, you know what? We thought that it might be cool if, as a society, we went and did this, and we are spending all this hidden black money, to achieve this goal. So, yes, we are spending your taxes, but look what we're trying to do.
Well, it's being
and meanwhile,
spent here.
we're going to feed these other people over here.
Yeah.
But you have to have a blend of goals achieved together.
Yeah.
And it seems that we let some of the societal ones go sometimes.
Well, I wonder, why are there so many different kinds of people, the color of their skin, their genetic background, all the rest of that. There's a huge variation in people.
Yes.
And you wonder, is it because they dumped all the bad boys and girls here, so that's why we're nasty to each other? Or is it something quite different? And it's exciting to look around and look for the new and see the different. Mm-hmm. And when people say there is no evidence for UFOs, I've had some people say that, and you start looking at a guy named Ted Phillips in Missouri has collected thousands of physical trace cases. These are where people see a saucer on the ground or near the ground, and after it leaves, one finds physical changes, the equivalent of burn circles, burn rings, landing gear marks, that sort of thing. Thousands of cases like that.
That one case especially that was like the land was salted. It wouldn't even grow anything anymore.
Well, that's right. And
there's all kinds of things of that nature.
Yeah, it's exciting to look into the different, and I wonder, I've never heard of anybody reporting an alien with 3 arms or 4 legs or, something like that. There seem to be some standards. Maybe that's in a different neighborhood in the galaxy or another galaxy. Who knows? It's tempting to think that we're smarter than everybody. We know how to do things, but I don't think we are smarter than everybody. I think the aliens who are coming here are smarter than we are, and they're probably shaking their head. They're being punished. Spend 2 weeks near Earth. That's punishment to last a lifetime, guys.
A friend of mine wrote a book called Going Interstellar. I always forget the second line of that book, which is terrible because I wrote the foreword for it. I'm so sorry, Tim. Tim is his son. But, in it, he's discussing the physics that would make interstellar travel with the properties that we know now impossible. And I'm just kind of like, but that's the physics that we know. We didn't always know the things that we know now. Yeah. And the math will eventually test out, because I'm really fascinated by the quantum mechanics involved in what people are thinking about transportation. And these aliens that are showing and stuff, because it looks like the math is starting to work out. And
we're beginning to understand that we don't know it all. That helps as a first step.
Well, you have to admit that you don't, so that you can go find out why and how. Right?
Try something different. And, looking at how flying saucers work, whatever way they work, who knows? I've got some ideas. That's what I can say. But I did work on nuclear rockets, and I was very impressed with my biggest day in industry was when we tested the NRX A6 nuclear rocket reactor propulsion system working for Westinghouse Astronuclear Lab. And nobody knew how long it would last. And there was a limit on how much liquid hydrogen we could store. Liquid hydrogen is the propellant on that. And, it went the full hour and they had to shut it off. And it was so exciting because there were people saying, I bet it won't go 5 minutes, Stan. And we went the full hour, and if we'd had more storage for liquid hydrogen, it would have gone longer. But it was exciting. It was different. And so I'm such an optimist about the new discoveries that will be made, the new things that will be done. We see it in medicine a little bit, antibiotics and some other things that if you told anybody you could do back 80 years ago what some of the things we're doing, they'd have laughed their head off. You're nuts, man.
Yeah.
But we have figured out new ways of doing things. And, Einstein, one of the craziest things about Einstein is he said that as you get closer to the speed of light, time slows down. Well, that sounds weirder than you can imagine. Why would it slow down? You go out, come back, marry your granddaughter's best friend?
Well, that's one way to look at it as a bonus, right?
Yeah, it's weird, but people thought Einstein was crazy. Some of them did, but he wasn't with relativity and stuff. And there will be more. I'm willing to bet that there will be more new ideas that come along to help us grow up a little bit more. And I wonder how many interstellar travelers there are coming to our solar system. Maybe they're tourists. People, it's easy to forget all the reasons we travel. And there are a lot of them. At first,
well, I mean, we don't always try to take over Ireland when we go on vacation.
That's right.
So, you're right.
People's minds are interesting. And, wouldn't it be nice to have an encyclopedia about the local galactic neighborhood? There are over 10,000 stars within 100 light years, and that means about 16,000 planets.
Yes.
And 100 light years is nothing, in terms of the size of the universe. Even our own little galaxy is thousands of light years across. And so I'm excited by what we don't know as much as by what we do know. And I say this because I get people sometimes telling me, Stan, we figured out all the important stuff already, don't you think? No, I don't. I don't think so at all. And progress comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. And if I could say what all the areas in which improvements would be made, I'd become a very wealthy man. But I can't say that. You have to take it as it comes. But anybody who thinks that nobody but a few crazy people see flying saucers, it's simply not true.
Well, no, it's not.
It's easy to become depressed, or some people are, but there's nothing new to be found. We'll be doing the same old stuff. And I will absolutely guarantee them that we won't be, that progress will be made in new ways of doing things for the benefit of people besides the killing of people. We're good at that. But
well, we've kind of past mastered that. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
Perhaps creating housing to house all these extra, billions of people that we keep adding. Adequate housing. So,
yeah, that would be nice. And it would be nice if you could dial up. Let's take a quick trip to Mars next weekend.
I know.
See what's going on. But I'm not going to be doing that. But I will be going to the MUFON conference, Mutual UFO Network. We'll have a symposium in Irvine, California in July. And I'll be in Roswell for the annual festival in early July. And I've enjoyed the Roswell Festival. I was at the first one 50 years ago, I spoke.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it is. And
yeah, it is.
The thing we need to learn is if we put the same attention to solving our problems, like, food and shelter and all that sort of thing, we will make a success of the world around us. It doesn't need to be just for bigger bombs or bigger guns. We act sometimes as if that's the way we got to spend our dough, but let's go, even if it takes dough. Let's travel. Let's see. Sorry.
I'm down for that.
I have a weird sense of humor. But
you have a great sense of humor, but I have to take a break now.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Y'all enjoy this.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am Kat with my guest. And, Stan, I'm sorry, I could say your name is Stanton Friedman, couldn't I? But,
well, you could, I suppose.
but this is Stan's final segment. He's going to be leaving at the top of the hour, and I'll be joined by Frank Lee. But Stanton, I would like it if you could describe what your vision of the future of space travel is. What do you think is going to actually happen? And do you have any grasp on the time frame? I mean, you know how these systems work.
Well, I envision there will be nuclear stuff, just because in terms of pounds per kilowatt, it beats everything else around, and I think that we will be seeing new systems for space travel, and I think in the atmosphere, magneto-aerodynamic systems.
Oh, yes.
And that's exciting to me anyway. The magnetic fields are important, and anybody who wants to travel out there is probably going to use them because they're all over the place too. But no, I'm excited. I wish I was going to live longer. Both my parents lived to be 90, so I got 6 more years to go.
At least, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm being a pessimist. Only 6 more to go, but. Progress, as I said earlier, comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. So I expect there will be new and better means of propulsion. And, some Americans are surprised when I say, that the Russians have operated 30 nuclear power plants in space. In the United States, only 1. And people look at me, you're kidding. No, I'm not kidding. Russia's a big country, they need to be able to do things in a big way. But so I'm excited about things that are new and different, and that make us think a bit about how can we do that better. And the optimistic part of me says that I envision that many more people will be thinking of themselves as earthlings, as opposed to Canadians, Americans, Greeks, Peruvians, whatever nationalistic labels we want to put on each other. I think the time will come when that happens. And it won't be easy. People changing how they live and their prejudices and biases and all that stuff don't come easy, But many people fly on jet airplanes. If I told you that 70 years ago, you'd have laughed your head off. So I think more people will be finding out about flying saucers. More people will recognize that there are implications here. There's a wonderful book about flying saucers in the Bible, which goes into sightings that you can find in the Bible. And people look at me, well, flying saucers in the Bible? Well, Dr. Barry Downing, a legitimate scientist, has written an excellent book about flying saucers in the Bible.
Yes.
And so people need to open their minds to the different, the exciting, physical trace cases are nice, but there are other aspects of this. What do aliens know about advanced biology, for that matter? Wouldn't it be nice if we could develop some better cures for certain diseases? If we help people live longer, then we have to say, hey, we got to feed them. Remember, Stan? We have to do other things along the way. It isn't enough to just say we'll live longer. You don't want people to starve.
Nope.
And it's funny. I live in Canada. I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the United States. And there's so much more empty space in Canada than there's in the United States.
That's because it's cold, Stan.
Well, so we use good heaters. Get better, No, but we sometimes forget how crowded some other places are, and there are some places on the planet that aren't so crowded, But one wonders, what's it like out there, 30 light years away? Now, I hear people saying, they'd have to come from hundreds of light years away. That's nonsense.
Well, why would they have to? I agree with you. That is nonsense.
Well, people, they want to hope we can keep our stuff to us, I guess. But I would sure like to see the chapter on interactions of aliens with Earthlings and see how long that's been going on for and where are we going to go in the future and all that sort of thing. It's exciting. And why does a scientist want to do advanced science? Because it's exciting.
Because you get to make all the cool new stuff, and you're the first one to play with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that.
And most people want to think we're going to do that the future is just an extrapolation of the past. Well, it isn't. There will be new and different and exciting things. And I hope one of them is that we will learn to get along with each other better because we've got a lot of things in common with everybody else on the planet. If you mess up the planet, you mess up a lot of people, not just your own people.
Absolutely.
People
forget that.
Yeah, they do. I think aliens come here and shake their heads about how we don't appreciate what we have here. And we can do better, no question about that. But the biggest thing we can do is to learn to live at peace, not only with our neighbors here on the planet, but with our alien visitors. I mean, they're being punished. You guys got to spend 2 weeks near Earth. Oh, really?
Those people don't know how to take care of anything.
So, well, why don't we teach them? Well, that's against the rules. Well, if we show them, I mean, if they see us, maybe they will learn from that. And I've been interested in UFOs for a long time, and I still haven't gotten bored with this subject in that sense of it's humdrum. It isn't humdrum to look around, see the variety, see the activities, to see new things happening out there and new things happening down here. And, somebody wants to build a magneto-aerodynamic propulsion system, talk to me. I'll give you some ideas, no charge. They can read my books. I've written several books.
You've written a lot of books.
And they were fun. I'd like to do one more, 60 Years of Ufology. And
well,
I may
I've already
get to do
told
it.
you I'd buy it, so.
Okay.
When you get that out, you're guaranteed a sale.
Well, look, we need to be excited about life, and about change, and about improvement, instead of being down. Oh, that's terrible. Look at the bad things that happened, and look at this accident, look at that problem. Let's look at the successes, not at the problems. And I think aliens might learn something from the fact that we have people here with different color skin and different languages and different views about religion and all that kind of thing. And we seem to be able to learn how to get along better than we did in the past, and get rid of some of the old biases and some of the old difficulties. And so I'm an optimist about that. I've got a great-grandson, and I expect he's going to grow up in a better world than I have grown up in. And I hope he doesn't have to worry about another world war, because it's not a good thing. But we can use the energy and the excitement and the technology that we have to make things better for us, for our neighbors, for aliens coming here. I think we need to put up a welcome sign instead of, everybody we have guns all over the place to keep out the strangers. It's just time to get past
I think that I think people would be a lot more welcoming to that idea than anyone expects. There's so many people who are already having interactive experiences just based on the little bit that I'm aware of. Ufology is not my primary field. I've learned about it through reading authors and researchers such as yourself. And it's just really interesting to me because, I met a woman who has had a very intense relationship with an alien species. And I was just like, well, you met her. She was at Ozark last year and lectured. But it was just like, really? Really? This was not something that I had ever anticipated hearing about. So that was a learning curve for me. And it was very hard because I have grown up being told that's not physically possible. You can't have relationships with an alien species because they don't exist. And, right? I mean, seriously.
Well, they do exist. They're
do.
Coming here. They're probably coming from a lot of different places. And if people want, they can read my books, Crash at Corona, the story of Roswell, or
That's
Flying Saucers and Flying Saucers in Science, and Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience. Fascinating story.
And I've never gotten to talk to you about that. And that's something else that either when you come back or when we get a chance to sit down and chat, we're going to discuss. but because you've actually written a lot of books with Kathleen Martin, who is their niece.
Yes.
And
yes.
It is fascinating. The whole thing. I mean, they came back with the star map.
Look down and things are terrible, or you can look around and say, oh, that's exciting. That's different. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's look a little further. Let's go around the corner and see what's on across the street over there. I'm still an optimist at my ripe old age. And so I hope your audience...
I love that about you. Because there's a lot of young people who aren't.
Well, yeah, it's easy to be down on the world, but I'm not. I'm excited, and I haven't been to space, and I'm sure I won't be, but I have studied an awful lot of things about the world in which we live.
Yes.
And there's no shortage of fascinating things to talk about. I talk about some of them in my books. You can get them from Amazon. I autograph all the books I send out. Because I think people are entitled to an autograph. But they need to wake up and smell the roses, if you will, and see the aliens and find out about what's happening on this planet that might be of interest to those guys.
Right.
I'm
doing
excited
something
about that.
Right, too.
Yeah.
They can't just be coming to look at the negativity. I think that there are people who are here helping us. And
well, I hope so.
I think so. I mean, you just never know, do you, Stan?
No, and I'm excited about that.
That's
as long as you know that there are things to learn, keep at it. Have at it.
And now it is time for our top of the hour break, and you will be going. Thank you so much. I enjoy
My pleasure.
you. I love getting the chance to talk to you anytime I can, and we'll do it again soon.
My pleasure, too. Okay.
Thank you.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. More details are emerging from yesterday's shooting at a synagogue near San Diego, California. A man opened fire during services marking the last day of Passover. One woman was killed. Rabbi Israel Goldstein remembered 60-year-old Lori Kay as a founding member of the congregation.
In my own interpretation, Lori took the bullet for all of us. She died to protect all of us.
Goldstein was among 3 people injured in the attack. A 19-year-old man with no criminal history is in custody. The 23-year-old truck driver who plowed into other vehicles on a busy highway near Denver, Colorado Thursday made his first court appearance yesterday. Carly Huckles of member station KUNC reports he's under arrest on suspicion of vehicular homicide.
Rahel Lazaro Aguilera Mederos didn't speak during the hearing where his bond was set for $400,000. He claimed in his arrest affidavit that his brakes failed and he noticed he was traveling at 85 miles per hour. But court documents suggest that the driver may have passed a runaway ramp that allows vehicles that are having brake problems to safely stop. Aguilera Mederos stated that after he tried to use the emergency brakes without success, that he closed his eyes because he thought he was going to die as he crashed into multiple other vehicles. The resulting explosions and fire were so extreme that they scorched the road and melted metal off of cars. A hearing is set for May 3rd when charges are expected to be filed. For NPR News, I'm Carly Huckles in Greeley, Colorado.
Investigators say it may take months to determine why a construction crane collapsed on a busy street in Seattle yesterday. 4 people were killed. Officials say the crane on top of a building was being disassembled when it fell. 2 of the people who died were iron workers. The others were in cars struck by the crane. 4 people were injured. Seattle is undergoing a building boom with dozens of construction. NPR News. Spain's governing center-left socialists won the country's election today, capturing 123 seats in the 350-seat Congress. But they must seek the help of smaller parties to maintain power. The far-right Vox Party gained ground, picking up 10% of the vote, which would give it 24 seats. Vox formed 5 years ago with the promise of defending Spain from its enemies, which it names, among others, Muslims, liberal elites, and feminists. Scandinavian Airlines is canceling hundreds of flights as a 3-day-old pilot strike shows no sign of resolution. Terry Schultz reports.
SAS pilots across Denmark, Norway, and Sweden walked off the job Friday after talks broke down in a dispute over working conditions and wages. Both sides confirmed there are currently no plans to resume negotiations. Pilots say they're prepared to be out for a prolonged period. The number of affected passengers has grown to 280,000, with the company now warning people who expected to be flying Monday and Tuesday their flights will be grounded. SAS says it can't afford the 13% wage hike pilots demand, but the pilots emphasize the standoff is also about better working hours. The company narrowly avoided bankruptcy in 2012, in part by cutting jobs and salaries. The strike is estimated to cost at least $6 million per day. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz.
After 30 years, Japan's Emperor Akihito is to abdicate his throne this week. He'll become the first monarch to step down in Japan in 200 years. He has said that he wants to abdicate while he's still capable. He's 85. His 59-year-old son will ascend the throne. I'm Nora Rahm, NPR News in Washington.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and we just had a fantastic hour with Stanton Friedman, who is one of my heroes. I enjoy him so much, and I was excited because my following guest was somebody that knows me well and knows I do get excited. So when I answered my Skype, I said, "Did you hear that?" So yes, he did. Heard me say that right on the air. And y'all, my next guest is someone I admire and respect so much. It is a friend. It's a coworker. We do a lot of research together and investigation. And I'm really thrilled that he is here. And that is Frank Lee, who is the founder of Casper, Central Alabama Spirits Investigation and Research. Did I come close?
You were so very close.
Society for Paranormal Investigation and Research. Ta-da. And, we have done work together for years, and you have a lot to do with where I share my wacky ideas, research theories, and you share your not so wacky ones with me. And we work really well together. And, it's like Stanton was saying, the enthusiasm and the quest for knowledge and always wanting to see what's going to come next is such a great thing. He's still excited, and he's retiring this summer. And
and that's really what that's what sets some researchers apart in the field. And for the record, some of the stuff you come at me with research-wise isn't as wacky as you think it is. So I'm just going to put that out there. That because there've been a bunch of times that you've came out and said, "Hey Frank, I've been thinking about this, and I know this sounds crazy, but blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's normal," and. So it's not as wacky as
well, it'll be an area that I'm not as familiar with as you. But it's great because we're able to bounce, theories and ideas and what ifs and what do you thinks. So
absolutely that and I'm gonna say this that the way that you were describing with. Like with Stanton Friedman, the enthusiasm. It is something that for some people it never goes away, and And that is such a big thing. I know with me, I've been investigating and doing that side of it for 20 years this year. As far as researching, I've been doing research and studying the paranormal longer than that. I was digging through research books and things like that for several years before I ever went on my first investigation. And even now, sometimes something will come across and I get just as excited as I was to go on my very first investigation back 20 years ago. It's
still
just
get excited. You never know what you're going to find.
And
what's going to work.
And I'm going to say that the key to being a good investigator, key to being a good researcher is we have to have that adaptability. We have to be able to evolve as time goes on. We have to be able to follow the evidence where it leads, because I guarantee if you follow that evidence where it's leading you and what it's trying to show you, you're going to see something a whole lot more amazing and a whole lot more exciting than starting to dismiss it, ignore it, and get away from it when it starts to kind of get away from what you were trying to confirm. That
exactly.
It's like, this isn't like what's on TV. I'm staying away from that. That
when it should be the other way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That when you get away from that mindset and you start really digging in, doing the research, this is kind of like we were talking about just yesterday, actually. How, there's so many teams that have research in their name, but don't do any research. A lot of them have never really read any books that weren't like the ghost stories or haunted places books, never really delved in and really studied what it is that they're investigating. And it's like I say all the time, there's such a small percentage of this that has to do with dead people. It's people are really missing out, and I think you would see a lot more enthusiasm if people would open their minds and be willing to expand their knowledge base and think outside that paranormal box that most people have gotten themselves into. But however, I put that with the caveat on there, open your mind, but like I heard a professor say once, don't open it so much that your brain falls out.
That's the best advice. I think that something I like about working together is that if you come up with an experiment you want to do, I'm like, sure, let's rock that. And vice versa. If I have an idea, then it works the same way. You're very open. But we have a question for you in chat.
Sure, absolutely.
Already. And Brenda wants to know, well, if we do believe that we pass over with certain aspects of what we had when we were alive, why would ghosts, would it be possible if ghosts can move objects, could they manage to change things on a global scale by banding together? Have you ever heard of ghosts at a location coming together to present a unified front, as it were?
I haven't heard of that, but I mean, who knows? That's a very good question, actually. That what kind of comes to mind with that one is the Klingbeils research that they did on the effectiveness. They actually did laboratory research on the effectiveness of prayer and meditation.
Focused energy.
And they actually were showing in a laboratory environment, one of their experiments was they had several groups of plants, and they had people that were praying over the plants and, giving these plants, compliments and, just really positive, like a really positive affirmations daily. And they kept this going for a couple of months. Well, they had another group of plants that were just left alone, just the same as any greenhouse condition. And then they had another group that they had people going in. They were, yelling at them. They were, saying really negative things, just creating that negative projection to them. They were all kept in identical greenhouses under identical conditions, same routine. Everything was kept identical, and they kept really good records of their work. Ironically, the ones that were exposed to the negativity did the worst. The ones that were just left alone, normal conditions, they did a little better. And the ones that had been prayed over, had the positive affirmations and everything else, did show a measurable increase in their growth, in their fruit production, and just their overall health. And I mean, it's fascinating. The Klingbeils also did some other research into global events, how like at near times of tragedy, they that there have been times that there were detectable shifts in geomagnetic disturbances, and the different types of energy.
Are you talking about like man-made tragedies, natural tragedies?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it was, one of them was 9/11 attacks. They noticed that there were several geomagnetic anomalies, and they couldn't figure out, what would explain it. But if you go back
the
and
whole world was praying that day.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, that's why, a lot of people, a question like what Brenda asked would be like, oh no, that's crazy. But, that kind of goes back to looking at some of the research that's been done, because I can't rule that out. And, some of the research that's out there that's, really been scrutinized, seems to suggest it may very well be possible. Because, I mean, what's the difference in a living person and a ghost? A body. It's still human consciousness either way.
It is.
Well,
as long as it's not residual. Right? And
definitely.
Then you wonder also, because I've never bought that ghosts were stuck in an environment and couldn't leave.
Right.
They may choose not to. Mm-hmm. But the activity is not 24/7, 365, so they go somewhere, in my opinion. But why couldn't they go and visit?
Absolutely. And I just remembered the name. I couldn't think of it to save my life just a minute ago. But the Klingbeils research, if anybody is interested in looking that up, it was spindrift research. And I remember
and
Bill
that is a good site too.
Yeah, and Bill Sweet is the gentleman that's kind of taking it over now and running it. Great guy. I've got to talk to him. I think you've interviewed him before, haven't you? I mean, fascinating stuff to look at. I mean, it really shows you how much, how much we do affect the world around us through our thought and intent.
People laugh that off. And you really shouldn't, because it is way too neat. And optimism is a good thing.
It really is.
And it's contagious, just like negativity is. And I'd much rather catch a good vibe than a bad one or measles. So,
Oh, yeah.
And I am going to say that I've been told there's a measles epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so prayers for everybody that's having to cope with that. I hope that it's not life-altering for you.
Right.
But, I think that we are going to take our first break. Mm-hmm. And we will be right back after this with Frank Lee. Y'all just come right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome! What?
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy. I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back. You are listening to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm so glad you're here, and I know that you're enjoying my second guest of the show. I never have two guests, and I've had two fantastic ones so far. We could go for hours and just keep adding people, but we're not. So my guest is Frank Lee, who is a parapsychologist. He is a paranormal investigator. He's founded his own group, Casper of Alabama, and we're having so much fun. Brenda had brought up a question relevant to could ghosts come together, like a collective consciousness amongst them, and change things for the positive in our world. And we started discussing things like focused energy, prayer, meditation, and the effects that they've already had on our society. So, Frank, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much. I always enjoy chatting with you, both on air and off. And, even like here just a couple of weeks ago, we had that investigation, and, I'll go ahead and tell on us a little bit here. Kat and I leave the investigation, and we're heading back. It's, there's a storm supposed to be moving in, and so me and her on the phone, and we're kind of talking about the investigation a little bit, and somewhere, and I know anybody that's heard me on here before talking with Kat, I know this is hard to imagine me and her doing this, but somehow we went from talking about the investigation and the weather to we were talking about traveling through black holes and how wormholes might work and
bending space.
and yeah, that, space time and quantum mechanics. And it's funny, after about 30, 45 minutes into this conversation, because this is a little bit of a drive down to where we had investigated, Kat finally says, we're probably the only two people in Alabama talking about this subject right now. And I couldn't help but think, that's probably true.
Probably so. But it was fascinating. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
Things that try to figure out. But that's why we work together so well.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and if I keep coming on here and telling on you like that, I'm going to completely have you outed as a, everybody's going to know that you're really a science geek. I'm just saying.
Well, science, tech, just we can't go much farther. So. But it's just so much fun because these topics amaze me. And I'm always trying to wrap my head around quantum mechanics. And when I first started studying that, I had to Google the terminology. And thank heavens I've gotten much better about that. I don't have to quite so often anymore. So I email people and ask them to come on the show, and I'm like, and I've got a pretty good handle on your work. I used to have to Google your terminology, but I've got it, and I'd really like to discuss this with you. So, and then they say, well, why not?
And it's like anything else. The more you study it, if you hang in there and just keep studying, you'll get it. And, when that moment you have that epiphany where it all kind of comes together.
The aha moment.
Yes, that's when that enthusiasm kicks in and you're like, oh my God, I've got to study more. And it really becomes fascinating.
Exactly. It's just like a lure. When you get it set, you're lost. You just have to finish that. So.
Oh yeah, I can't tell you how many times there's been, I would buy a book or even see a particular TV show that, I'm like a junkie for the Science Channel. That's like the only TV channel I ever watch. But I can't tell you how many times there would be a book that I've just got that I want to read so bad I can't stand it, or even a show coming on that I want to watch, that and I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. I need to go to bed here in the next 30 minutes to an hour. If I do it, I'll be up at 3 or 4 o'clock because after it goes off or after I put the book down, I'm going to be contemplating all of it and mind racing, and that's something that took me years to learn. Unfortunately,
it's a hard lesson because there's so much neat stuff. And sleep when you're dead, right?
Oh yeah, Well, the enthusiasm, like you talked about, that is so important. I mean, because that is your drive. That's what keeps you going, keeps you on track. And I mean, I know here a few weeks ago when they made the announcement about science confirming the human magnetoreception, that people actually can, um, you know, they can detect and are affected by Earth's geomagnetic fields.
Absolutely.
That
and you came
was
undone.
I couldn't think straight for 2 days. I was
Well, you had been
I was so
espousing that
confused.
theory for years,
Hmm.
and you were right.
And it's like, okay, we've got confirmation on this, so that opens up the possibility for this and this, and then this door's opened up, and now we've got this, and I mean, it just, I, yeah, I was
It
for
was a cool
about 2 days.
moment.
I was used, yeah, that's, um, because it works like that though, because sometimes when you get one small confirmation that you've been debating on or kind of hoping for. And you've got all of these other things that you've thought about. Sometimes that one small confirmation way over here in left field is what sets the green light or gives you the go ahead for all these other things that you've pondered, and just it's maybe it's kind of like that one tiny pebble that's pulled away that sets off the avalanche.
Yep.
And that's exactly what that was here a couple of weeks ago.
Well, it's one of the coolest moments in time.
Hmm.
So I think it was pretty cool too. And I was really proud and happy for you. Proud of and happy for you. Because it was just a fantastic moment.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate
And
that. I know that for me, that was, that was probably one of the most exciting moments I've had in my personal research, that to get that kind of confirmation. Because, sometimes you start to doubt yourself.
you do.
You think, you think I might be 100% wrong about this. And, when something like that comes, not from someone in the paranormal field, but you've got several universities that have worked on this study, and they're like, confirmed, confirmed, confirmed. And
I know. It was
that's,
huge.
hmm it really is.
It's a big, hairy deal. I can't wait till your next theory is proven. We'll just have to celebrate more. But you're always looking, and you're always contemplating and studying, and you're trying to find applications, and then you're trying to find reasons for what worked and what didn't. And, you're very analytical, and you're very good at just saying, okay, well, this didn't work. Why not? And what will?
Hmm. Absolutely. That, I've never really understood the mindset of someone who is supposed to be in research not wanting to admit that they were wrong about something. Because in research, you learn your best lessons from your mistakes. From it's when you go wrong that you're able to backtrack and see exactly where it derailed. And, you embrace those mistakes and you grow from them, and that's how you hone your skill set and hone your research and make it better. And, to not be willing to say, oh, I was wrong about that. That wasn't right at all. That
I get to
which
say
I've
that
had,
a lot.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to say it. I mean, more times than I can count. And I can count pretty high. I've got a Pell City education, so I can go past both hands and both feet. I can go way beyond the fingers and toes.
Not bad.
That, yeah, that. I mean, granted, that kind of came, with some practice, because
Oh my goodness.
that's.
um, speaking of statistics,
Finally.
where in the world is the most concentrated of spectral sightings?
That is a good question.
Could be Balmoral Castle.
That
There's so many possibilities.
Yeah, that's something that would definitely have to do some research on. I mean, most likely, if I were going to this kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. That's going to have to be a solid I don't know answer, and I'm proud of it and sticking to it.
There you go. Roll with the strength.
Right. That's a strong I don't know. But I will say that, and this is pure speculation, might be 100% wrong, but given how much residual energy kind of accumulates, you have those place memories, those,
yes.
I would say it would, I would definitely look at some of the areas that have been settled for thousands and thousands of years, because there's just been that cumulative energy that they've been exposed to for so much longer. So that would absolutely, I would think increase the chances versus, I would think you'd have a much higher chance of encountering residual energy somewhere that's more densely populated with a longer history of being settled, like say Greece, Rome, somewhere like that, than you would in the Americas, particularly like say Utah, or somewhere that hasn't been very densely populated and doesn't
that
have
we know
that.
of. So
Right.
I was thinking,
even so, doesn't have that dense population like a lot of other places do.
right. I was thinking not just Auschwitz, but all of the concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
Because
you can only imagine.
I mean, I know someone who is a psychic that I trust, who could not, psychic empath, not a psychic medium, but a psychic empath, who could not, went down when they entered the gates, and they had to leave on a stretcher.
Yeah.
Because they were so overwhelmed by the spirits there. And I could imagine that being the case. Yeah. I just don't know how. I would never go there. I just could not. But that's just one of those things.
Well, if you think of the, considering the living conditions, I mean, you know how it is in a hospital or a prison when you go through there. Just not counting anything intelligent that you might encounter, just the residual energy. You get that heaviness. And
well, in certain areas, because I've done Eastern State Penitentiary, and I did not get that through the whole place, and I expected to. Because nobody would be happy to be incarcerated. Right? There were areas that were terrible to cope with, but it wasn't the whole place. And the same at places like Old South Pittsburgh, or when I investigated Curaway, there wasn't anything in some areas, and other areas were off the chain.
Yeah, that, and if you consider, that much concentration and that type of environment, and then you multiply it, It's a whole different story when someone goes into a hospital thinking, there's a chance I might not come out of here.
Yeah.
Or this is a dangerous procedure. Or goes into a prison, and spends years and years there in confinement, or, maybe the rest of their life. But to consider the conditions that, like at Auschwitz, that they were under is so much more extreme. And then you consider that every residual haunting or every place memory created is created by a living person. And that, if you just do the math on that, then it would be more logical for it to be overwhelmingly haunted, at least in a residual sense, than not.
Yes. Well, and, in addition to concern for themselves, families went. Families were taken together. And, knowing that if they went through that door, they were not going to come out.
Right.
And their children weren't going to come out. So, and that's enough of that, because that just destroys me. But, because it's really weird. It's almost like you invoke that history when you talk about it. But, it does have to be talked about, because those who don't learn history repeat it. So.
Oh, yeah. And the thing about history is, there are plenty of parts that are all nice and everything, but, we have to learn from and discuss the parts we aren't so proud of, and
we do.
The mistakes, and the bad parts too. That's
and how far we've come forward. Because I agree, you have to acknowledge the bad that happened, but every time there's anything relevant to those topics that comes up, people expect our society here to act that way again, and the people that live here don't.
Right.
This is a community now because we came through that and learned from that. And I think that matters so much. There is a terrible history. There's a terrible history going back for a couple of centuries. But everybody affected, I think, you either grow from that or it destroys you. And speaking of, learning from that, it's time for our break.
Oh,
so we will be back. Y'all just hang loose with us.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. This is our final segment. I'm Kat Hobson, and my guest is Frank Lee. Welcome back, Frank.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you, this time seems to be just flying by. I mean, we haven't been talking about, what, 5 minutes?
I know, right? I think there's something wrong with the clock.
I believe so.
But it does. That's why we wind up having 2 and 3 hour conversations, right?
Definitely. So. Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. It's when we were talking about me coming on the second hour, and it's like, first I'm like, yeah, sure. And I wonder how Kat and I are going to manage only doing an hour.
I know.
It's like, usually we struggle just to do 2 hours.
There has been an after show.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But that's because we have so much to talk about. We're so interested in the same things, the same research, and the same ideas. And, I'm reading, it's behind me, but Machio Keiko's book, and you bring it up in a conversation. I mean, it's just really odd.
Oh yeah, the synchronicities are fascinating there because that was just a couple weeks ago we were talking, and I'm like, oh man, Kate, you've got to get this book, the Future of the Mind. It's by Michio Kaku, and you're like, oh, you mean this one that I've got? It's like, yeah,
that I'm reading again now. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's me. I read it twice, and right now I've got it loaned out to Kayleen, and then when she gets done with it, I'm probably going to read it another time.
Well, he does expand the mind. Mm-hmm. He really does.
Oh, it is fascinating, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about last time you had me on the show when we're saying that the realistic information you're going to get about the paranormal field and where the future of it is going is not going to be on any paranormal website. It's not even going to have the word paranormal in it.
Nope.
It's going to come from neuroscience. It's going to come from quantum mechanics. It's going to be a university study that they're like, this is odd, and that's where you're going to find it. And
that's
it's
why we subscribe to their journals and their magazines and their compilation studies.
I had a big compliment paid to me the other night. I was talking to someone, and I forgot what it was they said, but I was like, well, according to a study they put out, and I got stopped right there mid-conversation, and he says, I think you know of a study for any subject whatsoever that is brought up. And it's like, well, thank you.
I think that was right.
But it really is that's where you're going to find it. And something that is so sad about it is I've got the Casper's Facebook page, and we're on Twitter, and we have the regular website and all that, and I can post the dumbest meme or just whatever, and it just blows up, goes viral. But I can post like the most groundbreaking, fascinating scientific article or study, and nobody will touch it with a stick.
Crickets.
I mean, yes, I'm lucky if I might get 2 or 3 interactions on it, and yet it's the same people who ignore those big discoveries but jump all over the silly stuff that are complaining about the paranormal field not advancing.
Yeah,
it's like, well, hello.
Maybe you should, look at the stuff that would.
Mm-hmm. And, but it's like that old saying: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, and that is very true.
It is. Yeah. Even when it's something that's supposed to be, a quote, passion,
mm-hmm.
and it's ignored. Yeah. It's sad because they're missing so many opportunities, and not just from what you post, but, if they're not reading what you're sharing, they're not reading what other people are sharing relevant to that too. And that's sad. If you're going to be a real researcher, you have to read the hard stuff, the stuff that you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to Google the terminology in sometimes. I mean, it's okay to do that. And it's okay to admit that you have to, because at least
Well,
you're
you know,
trying.
the mind is like anything else. It works just like a muscle. That, if you don't exercise it, it gets weak. However, the more you work it out, the stronger it gets. And I'm all about you remember the old wives' tale that, every time you learn something new, you get a new wrinkle on the brain.
Well, yes. Like
I'm
every time you smile,
well,
you get a new wrinkle on the face. I don't mind those
right,
wrinkles.
right. I'm all about adding wrinkles to my brain. Matter of fact, it kind of reminds me. This is terrible, but I'm gonna say it anyway
It's not
because
counting again, is it?
right. No, it's not about counting and doesn't
Okay.
involve nudity, so we're good.
Okay.
but it actually reminds me of a guy that I know that we nicknamed him Smooth Brain. This guy, what dumb as a rock, and
By choice?
he, no, I don't believe so. But it was pretty bad, and we called him Smooth Brain, and he thought it was cool. He's like, yeah, I'm Smooth Brain. What he didn't know was the meaning behind Smooth Brain was the joke was that his brain was smooth. There were no wrinkles to catch the knowledge, so it just kind of all rolled off.
That's sad.
and so just a little like I say, it's bad, and I should be ashamed of myself. I mean, I'm not, but I should be.
You are a pistol tonight, little mister. But
Well,
go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say it's because
I don't
I've
know
been
if
out
I'm
of the
going to let
house
you go
all
ahead or
day.
not, Frank.
I,
Did you want to?
I've been out of the house all day, and been
And it was gorgeous.
out in nature, and oh yeah, enjoying it. So I'm all feisty tonight, I guess.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, you've got about 5.5 minutes left. Do you want to tell people about what you approached me on last night?
Sure, absolutely.
Because I think it's cool.
Yeah, and this is something I'm so excited about. Of course, most people know that you're also a member of Casper, and just an amazing asset to the team.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, you're tremendously always an amazing resource for us. But I was talking with Kat just last night, and said that it's like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And what we're doing, of course, Kat is going to be my research partner in this, and we're looking at bringing a couple of other people in on it. We're basically forming a parapsychology research unit that I don't know if you'd call it a team, a center, or what, but we're going to be getting together doing parapsychology research. It's going to be very clinical, 100% abandoning anything that you've ever heard about the paranormal. It's not going to have paranormal anywhere in the description, name, nothing. It's going to be committed to studying human consciousness, the brain, how our surroundings and the environment interacts with our mind, and how our mind interacts with the environment, and what the mutual effect is. And we're going to be doing a lot of experiments to help further that research. And I mean, granted, we are hoping that some of the things that we find are things that we can pass to the paranormal community, but we are also establishing it in a way that we're looking for research we can present to any university out there as well. And it's something that I'm ecstatic about. I can't wait to get it going. We've already been doing some experiments that will be continuing with that, and as well as a lot more. So it's going to be something a lot different. We don't have a name for it or anything yet. It's just literally me and Kat just worked this out just last night. So,
but I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be educational, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of these things come to pass, especially since we are researchers and we've been investigators. So we know what presents when we're in the field.
And I think that's an advantage. And yeah, that, having already studied parapsychology as much as both of us have, and having the knowledge of biology and geology and so many other disciplines of science, I mean, bringing that together it's going to, I'm excited about it.
I am too. I think it's going to be a great venture and adventure. So I'm all about that stuff. It just ties in with, always look for the next thing. That's something that I've learned in life. And, it's what Stanton was just saying in the previous hour, which, you have to progress. You're going to make mistakes. You have to progress. You're not going to learn. Things aren't going to improve unless you're progressing. And this is a progressive step toward implementing our knowledge base. And
the paranormal field, the paranormal field will never advance and evolve if the people in the paranormal field are not themselves willing to advance and evolve.
That's right. So it's going to be interesting.
And I think this is the logical next step. It's, I could care less about validation. I could care less about proof of the existence of ghosts or any of that stuff. I think that is the worst mentality that any investigator or researcher can have. Because if I go out there with that mentality, I'm looking for proof of ghosts. I'm, looking to... Yeah, if I'm looking for that, then everything that I find is going to be tainted and biased toward that. Exactly. And you have to be willing to throw it to the side and follow the evidence where it takes you.
Even if you have to turn around and start over. And that's okay, too, because you know what? It's just part of getting the correct answers.
And you have to look at it this way. We've been doing the same thing in the paranormal as a community. Same techniques, the same basic modus operandi for nearly 150 years. The only thing that's really changed is the toys have gotten a little cooler and light up more.
That's right.
And there have been no major... and within the paranormal circle, there's no proof of ghosts that's came out. There's no truly amazing discoveries that have came from the paranormal community. So it's like in 150 years, nobody's really making any true progress. So if we're doing some kind of research that's taking us away from that, if the evidence is leading us from what everybody else is doing that is being fruitless, then that's the way we need to go.
Well, exactly. You have to follow. And I'm excited because I can't wait to see where we're going to start flowing with this. But you know what? We're out of time. How does that happen? I just wish that, sometime you would book me on a show for longer than 10, 15 minutes. I know, right? So we'll get there.
It always flies. It does.
Well, it does. But that's because we talk about things that interest us. So
yes. And
hopefully they interest the people listening to us too. So
I don't know. Some of the things I say, they might be like, "Don't bring that guy back."
That's going to go away. It's okay.
Right. Between me talking about counting and then my talking about the paranormal community and all that, they're like, no.
The paranormal community, they have big boy pants. They can pull them up, or big girl. They know that there's not really anything changing. You're having better ITC devices, but you're using apps, so programming, and you're having better recorders and better cameras. But anytime you catch something, somebody's always going to point and say, "Oh, CGI," and it's time to get science involved.
It really is, and I mean, honestly, and here it is, something else that sounds bad that people aren't gonna like, but really, honestly, what does it matter? Who really cares what, some people that follow a Facebook page think of what you've presented to them? That is useless. That does absolutely nothing. If you're going to look for evidence, if you're going to look for some kind of data, look for something that, instead of worrying about some popularity contest and trying to get some people that think what you do is cool to acknowledge something, get something you can present to a university. Get someone with the initials PhD behind their name to take a serious look at it and test it out in his department. Get something that you can get peer reviewed on a professional level. That's when you're going to be really doing something for the community.
I think so too.
Oops, did I just say it out loud?
You did, and I agree. So it's all good. But we are running a little behind, so we are going to have to go. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. I love it.
It's always a pleasure. I look forward to talking with you anytime.
All right. Thank you. Me, you too. And that being said, guys, we are going to be calling it a night. I will be listening tomorrow night to Denise Pridemore on the Paranormal Pride. Wednesday night, I'll be back, and I am looking forward to welcoming you to Paranormal Experience. Thursday will be, if they're not still on the road, Periscope Uncensored with Clarissa and Joe. Friday night is a big night. We're going to have Paraversal Universe, which will be a Paralegend Report episode. We will have Ghost Talk Radio. We'll be doing a rebroadcast of Shelley's show for you that night. And then we will have Sarah Fain Hurley with Trip in the Void. And then I'll be back next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Y'all have a fantastic night. Good night from us here at Fate Mag Radio.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.